There we go. The other thing to realize about technology is if you don't hit the button, it's not going to start. Anyways, again, with technology, business, anything, you only have so many hours in the day. And so I am running out of time. I'm running out of time for the Zoom classes. So until I get some more time back, I figured we can do these question and answer sessions. Again, get people to come here. It's an open thing for people to be able to ask questions. So if you do come here, I do need you to have a question. This is not hangout time. Again, I'll go and be with my chihuahua and drink a cup of coffee and read a book. It's not hangout time. This is question and answers. So if you're going to come to these sessions, you need questions. Just, again, it's whatever questions you have, basically, about the technology world. You come, you ask questions, we discuss it, we move on, and that's basically what this is. Again, I did these before. I did these like 2 years ago, and people decided that they were like a hangout session. Like, I came to hang out. And then I stopped them. And then I stopped them. I don't want to hang out on Zoom. I'm not saying I have the most awesome life in the world, but I am saying my life is better than hanging out on Zoom. So anyways, that is what we're doing here. So if you have a question, I would highly prefer, where the hell is the React, that you raise your hand. Raise your hand in Zoom. If you're watching this on Zoom, and then I can get to you and know that you actually have a question. I will get to the comment streams. It is easier. I would prefer to do the verbal question and answer for 2 reasons. It actually creates a better show, or a couple of reasons. It creates a better show, creates better communication. If you don't understand something or if you disagree or whatever, we can go back and forth with it a little bit. And it also helps you folks. Again, like I know a lot of you are shy. A lot of you are introverts or whatever garbage. And, you know, the world is hard on introverts. Again, I was told this by one of my viewers. Eli, you're giving all of this advice about meeting people and doing informational interviews and creating relationships, but you're ignoring the introverts. As I know, I'm not ignoring the introverts. This is how you become successful. You either do it or you starve to death. That's the fucking reality. So if you want to get over your introvertedness, one of the easiest ways to get over your introvertedness is to raise your hand and ask a question. Because if you're not willing to raise your hand and ask a question here, I do not put $5 on you having a successful career. That's just reality. Hey look, Jock's in the house. We got a whole show. We got a whole show with Jock. Don't worry, all you can put your hands down. Jock will have his hand up the entire time. Anyways, that's fine. That's fine. Again, questions. We are here for the questions. So, Vladimir, when I unmute you too, stay unmuted until your question is answered. Because, anyways, what's up, Vlad?
Okay. Thanks a lot. I have a quick question. Hello, everybody. I've been studying Python for quite some time, and I'm still in the beginning phase of the course. And so my question is about the variables.
Okay.
Just generally, I'm curious as per, is there a table which can show me how to assign the variables in the code? And I know there is a way of doing it through putting it into a function in the beginning, but what are the alternatives? I mean, I know that there is different types of variables that you could assign, but what's unclear is where exactly I could look up the types of variables.
So if you want to look up the types of variables, what is it, W3 Schools? W3 Schools Python data types. They're called data types. Python data types. And if you go here, they actually do have quite a few. They have more than I talk about just because, for the most part, it doesn't matter. So for text, these are called strings. So they have a string data type. Numeric, int is a whole number. Float is a decimal point number. Complex is some kind of mathematical garbage I never worry about. Sequence, so these are kind of like arrays. You have multiple values at indexes, so they have lists, tuples. We have dictionaries. We have Boolean. So Boolean is true or false, 0 or 1. Binary types. So these are for actually dealing with files. So when you're going to be moving full files around, like video files or PDF files, you actually have a binary type for bytes. And then you can have none type. Basically, so this is all the types. You can do the research. Some of them you use, like int and float you use all the time. Complex, I don't know, you'll use it when you use it. But if we go over, again, we just take a look at code. If you're talking about creating and setting a variable, all it is message hello Vlad. All right, and then we can go down here. We can print type message, and we can print message. So basically when we're taking a look at this here as far as the variables are concerned, in order to create and set a variable, all you do is you create the variable name, you set it equal to something. So message equals hello Vlad, so that will come back as a string. So you can use this this type. So this is a type with this function is called type, and this will tell you the data type of the variable. And so if we simply run this, oops, it won't ask me to save it. I don't want to save it there. Save it to the desktop. Class today. Anyways, so when we run this, we can say it's a class of string, and then prints out hello Vlad. Right? That's all it is for creating it, declaring it, and seeing the data type. The issue that you can run into is, let's say, oh, message equals a number. All right, let's say message equals 12. Right? So one of the things to understand about Python is it auto-assigns data types, which can be either very easy or it can be a fucking miserable experience. Because it will assign the data type for you, right? So if we say message equals 12 and we do type again, what we're going to notice is, see, it's now going to be a class of int. It is a data type of integer because it's a whole number. If we do a message of 12.12, it will auto-assign, and there you go. You get a data type of float because it's a decimal point number. Where this can kind of go to hell if you're not really realizing what's going on is, let's see here. If we do message equals input, give number, right? Basically here, what we're going to do is we're going to run this. It's going to ask me for a number to put in. Right? So again, you saw that it was auto-assigned. 12 was an int, 12.12 was a float. Right? That's going to be easy. So I'm going to put in 33 here. And then what you're going to notice is when you use the input function, even though you're plugging in a number, it gets a data type of string. So if you're doing math, you have to change the data type from string to either an int or a float. And that is where you use the function. Message equals int, or we'll just say float. Float message, stop that. And then we're going to Control C, print that again. Right, so message, we're going to put a number in, we're going to show the data type, it's going to be a string. We're going to use float. So this can be float, this can be int, this can be string, str. This is the function for how you change the data type. And then we're going to print out the data type and then print out the variable. So we do that. Number 77, hit enter. We can see 77 we put in. It was a class of string, data type of string. Now it's a data type of float. And then it prints out 77.0. It adds that .0 because I called it a float with a decimal point instead of an int. I think you muted yourself. Don't mute yourself, people.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's actually really easy. As I'm looking at it right now, it looks really easy. But my question was also about should I put variables in every function, or can I just assign the variables in the module before the module, and every module will be will have all the same variables?
Okay, so man, I think it's a little more complicated.
So if that makes sense.
Yeah. So basically, what's supposed to happen, right? So let's create a little crappy function. So we're going to create define hello name, and then what you're going to say is print f string hello name. All right, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to say name equals Bob, and then we're going to call hello, and then send it the name. Right, all 3 seconds. God help me, this should work, right? Let me just make sure this works. Yeah, hello, Bob. Okay, so basically, this is essentially how you should be sending variables to your functions. So you create a variable. So whenever you use a variable, it has to be created and assigned, right, and set before you call it. So even though this function is up here, remember a function doesn't work until you call it. So I can create a variable name here. We're going to set it equal to Bob. I then go down here. This is where I call the function. And when I call the function, I then put in what variable I'm sending to the function. We then come up here, define the hello function. We're sending it the name variable value. And then we're simply using an f string here, so concatenation. So print f, hello, and whatever the name is. So more or less, this is how you should be sending variables to your functions. Now, within functions, you can have something called local variables. So you could have greeting equals hello. And so what you could do here, but Jesus. Anyways, okay. No greeting. Greeting. So what you can do here, right? So I'm sending the name, and then maybe within your function, you're going to be calling a database. You're going to be doing a REST API call. You're calling something to bring in some additional information. So basically that's where it would come in here, and you can assign local variable values in here. So when we talk about local variables, these variable values are only accessible as far as the function is concerned. Once you drop out of the function, nobody else can access greeting. So that's where you do hello name, and we say greeting, again, f string, blah, blah, and then we hit run. And so that's where you get hello Bob. And again, like that's where this might be like good morning. So good morning, good night. So what you could have here is you could have additional code fire off basically to check the time. If the time is before noon, greeting equals good morning. If time is afternoon, greeting equals good afternoon. And then you would add that in here. So how do I put it? Any variable values that you're going to be interacting with in kind of like the wider world of your script, you want them created outside the function. You want them then sent to the function. And then local variables inside the function. These variables should only be things that literally only relate to this function. Again, like with that greeting or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. Yeah. The only thing is that if you don't use print parentheses and define this array, it's basically going to print it without a space, right? So
what's that?
When you print the string. If you print it is as an array or as something else, right? It's just going to print without space. That's all. Because
it depends on what you're doing.
Right, but it's an F string. I understand.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that it's the variable itself, is already defined. But if I printed this as an array, it would just print hello Bob without a space.
There's no array here. There's no array here. Where's array coming from?
Right.
No, there's no array. There's no array. Why are you saying array?
Well, because I guess it's just part of the situation that I experienced when I was studying this.
Well, the only place that you so again, by default, just so we get all our verbiage straight with this, you're not gonna. So again, Python doesn't have arrays by default. Arrays are a special thing. It'd most likely be a list. So if you returned, so let's say, result equals, right, and then I return greeting, comma, name. It's kind of a weird freaking way to do it. But anyways, and then I come down here and I print result. Then what you'll know, I guess it comes back as a set. So it comes back as a set. So we have hello, comma, Bob. So that's what you might get, but that's when you're returning both values. I could also, instead of doing that, I could do, let me just do, response equals, again, let's just do an F string again, greeting, space, name. And then what I could do is I could return all of response. So therefore, I'm creating the response as an F string. And then when I do that, that's where I get the hello Bob as one thing there. So again, if you're getting a what the fuck? You're getting a set collections. They're called collections. If you're getting a collection back, and so you're getting those parentheses or whatever, that sounds like you're reading the return value, and therefore you do have to deal with it differently. So I got rid of this, right? So what I could do is I could print f result 0, because that's at index 0. Result 1. So let's do this. So print result, right? So we're going to print the result that comes back. So these are going to come back as that set. And then we're going to print at index 0. I'm going to do index 1 to turn that into a message. So see, here's where it comes back as a set. And then index 0, index 1, I use an F string to print index 0 space index 1. Is that kind of what you've been looking at?
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. Well, there you go. Hey, code questions. Holy crap. I like answering actual technical questions. That's good. Okay, let me mute you for a second then if you're done. Who else has a question? Hands up. Hands up. We're here for questions. Not here to hang out. Oh, you boys and girls are going to kill me. Do I just get one question? It's like, here, Eli, the computer guy, we're going to give you one question about variables, and that's it. Okay, I'll go to the one question in the chat. Again, I do have to say, we are... oh my god, people are killing me. It's a question and answer session. It is literally a question and answer session. Do you have questions? Again, we can talk about your career prospects. We can talk about business. We can talk about that kind of stuff. All right, Vlad, I'll get to you in a second. I said I would get to M-O-H-C-I-N, however you pronounce that, in the chat section, since he doesn't want to raise his hand. I'm in a coffee shop with noise. Oh, that's what they say. Okay. Can I make a solo freelance business creating web apps? Like web design or web apps are complicated and you need a team to build them like a big corporation. Depends on what the hell you call a web app, right? Really, a website is a web app, right? A website, you have interactivity. In the modern world, you're going to have a back end, content, CMS, a content management system. It's like if you use WordPress, like WordPress is a web app that you most of the time use to build websites, but you can also use to build other more complicated things. And so whether or not you need a full-fledged team and or company, or whether you can do it yourself, really goes into how complicated your web apps are going to be and, just how far your skill set reaches. Right? I mean, that's how it is, right? If all you know is HTML and CSS, I don't know, you can probably do a few things. The more stuff you know, the better. So basically, the big thing is to go out and start talking with clients. And the big deal is just asking people what they want and what they're willing to pay for. And the big thing is, I keep saying the big thing, right? Anyways, when you go out and you talk with people, the curious thing is most of the time they need a lot less than you think they do. That's one of the problems with noobs. One of the problems with noobs is like they go out and they see people ripping off stuff, and they're like, oh, I can't do that. It's like, yeah, no, most people don't need complicated stuff. They need relatively simple things. So if you go out and you talk with people, whatever budget whatever salary you need, you see how much they're willing to pay for. Basically, you can just go along, and most likely you can start simple and then start growing. Again, one of the sad things one of the frustrating things that I saw, I kind of kick myself now, when I thought YouTube was going to lead to my fortune. I knew a lot of people that built WordPress sites, and I know what people think. Oh, that's dorky and dumb. Yeah, they made a lot of money off WordPress sites because basically you build the WordPress site, but then you create like your own custom plugins, or you really design it really well. They were charging like $100,000 essentially for WordPress sites. So you can make a lot of money. Again, the whole thing is if people are actually willing to pay for it. So go out there, again, talk with people, see where your level is, and then see how much help you actually need, especially in the modern world with artificial intelligence. Again, it's not, but we'll call it that. One of the big issues with tech people is normally we're really bad with design. That's why I talk about like something looks like it was designed by a Linux administrator. Like all the parts are there, but it is ugly as snot. And so one of the things, like what I used to do, is you would hire designers. So they didn't actually do the HTML or the CSS. You would give them the website idea. You would tell them what they wanted, what you wanted the website to look like. And basically what would happen is they would simply come back in the day with like Photoshop or Illustrator, and they would literally have designed the site. So the header is this particular color with this particular font. This is how things look. This is, right? And basically what you would do is you would then turn that into code. And so that's some of the kinds of things to think about. And with AI, one of the things that's nice is you can kind of tell AI what you want your website to look like. It can literally dump, an image for you of what the website might look like. And then if you know enough HTML and CSS and the rest of that, you can just sit there and tippy-tap type and turn that very beautiful picture into some god-awful text, right? And turn that into the actual website. So yeah, I mean, again, you can do it from your basement, you can do it from a coffee shop, or you can do it with a 20-person team. It really depends on the size of the projects that you're going to be going after. So that's that thought there. Oh, let's see here. What sucks is I'm watching in class right now. I have to wait for my lunch break to turn on the mic. That is awesome. That is awesome. What is your name? Will, you just made me proud. You just made me the proudest teacher in the whole wide world. Oh, I do feel bad for your instructor though. To think about, you're literally sitting in class with an instructor as you watch another instructor if that does not explain the modern world, I just don't know what does. That is hilarious. Okay, Jock, what is up?
Good afternoon.
Yep.
So mine is more of a software and business question, and it goes up with you were saying with AI. So I just came off of a call with an organization, and it's in healthcare, but they are interested in utilizing some of these AI strategies. So you've always sold solve a problem,
Yep.
but they want to try to utilize AI in their systems to solve problems. So when we come to these organizations and we want to be able to solve their problems and not exactly get a job, we
Mhm.
maybe get a job, but should we approach it with the aspect of trying to build a system for them or just build a kind of like like you said, a solution to their problem, but on a very small scale because AI is still like kind of like a wild west. So you showed us like a lot of things we could do to build systems for them.
Yep.
What would be approach that we can go to these individuals to try to be able to quote unquote solve their problems using artificial intelligence?
What? So they came to you. So like what? Again, solving problems with AI. That's a gazillion damn things. What issues were they having that they thought AI might be able to solve?
So integrating, getting more data collection, being able to merge systems. So this organization they work with a lot of community-based organizations, and community-based organizations have a database, and they want to be able to integrate their information with their database and be able to come up with better ideas of how to collaborate with them. So it's like data merging, I should say, getting feedback, getting information to their people in the streets at a very quick pace of like, if they say, okay, I need to know the information of this individual, here's the individual. How do we find out about it? It might not be in their database, but it might be in another database. How do we merge those together? Kind of see the question I'm asking?
Yeah, but like I say, that gets into the whole issue. This is why I hate AI. Is that it doesn't sound like an AI problem. So basically, their systems need to be able to connect with external third-party databases. So if
That's one problem they have. Yes.
yeah, so I mean, then that external database system has to be designed in such a way that they can communicate with it at all. Again, that's where we talk about with APIs or because it's like I mean, you can have the best AI in the world, but if it can't look at the data, who the hell cares, right? So if you have a lot of small like nonprofit organizations and they have their weird little databases and they're going to be weird little databases and they're all kind of siloed in their own world, the fundamental issue there is simply how the hell are you going to connect to that damn thing. And so if the database is residing locally within their infrastructure, right? They have a little MS SQL database server. Um, Somebody would literally have to design a system and build it so that somebody from the outside world would be able to access that MS SQL database system. And when they did, again, this is where we're talking about database and security, they would have to make sure that when the database was accessed, it was read only. And not only was it read only, but if you're talking about healthcare providers, making sure that only the correct types of data are actually able to get pulled to the healthcare provider that's trying to look at that information. Um, and that's where that's one of the reasons why small companies generally don't get a whole hell of a lot of support in the tech world. It's the same reason why it's probably pretty hard to get somebody just to come in and fix your dishwasher or something. Like the smaller the customer, the less money there is to make, and therefore you go for the bigger fish. And so the issue is you have a lot of these third party, these external people, and they're all using different databases, and they all have different infrastructure. Trying to come up with solutions for each one of those individuals, I mean, it might be a $50,000 to $100,000 solution per. And then there's the maintenance, and then there's the rest of it. So one of the things that you have to be thinking about if you're going to be going to your customers, and this is why it's important to understand technology from a broad scale. Again, this whole AI thing, AI is a piece of functionality. Any of my snark, just put it to the side. Just realize all AI is a piece of functionality, is one component a much larger system. And so that's one of the things that you need to be thinking about when you go to your customers. When they ask for, frankly, kind of sort of stupid solutions, the thing that you need to be thinking about is, okay, how can we distill this into a product that we might be able to develop, right? Because again, I highly doubt they're going to be spending 50 grand per third party, whatever, trying to get this done. It would be a disaster, right? Don't touch that shit. Do not touch that particular contract. And so that's where you look at it. Is that a solvable part? Like I had clients that came to me back when I had my store, and in our area, so the guy that came to me was worth like $200 million, and he wanted better security, which we all want better security in Baltimore City. And so he was going to put up privately all of these surveillance cameras around our business district, but then to make it affordable, he wanted that streamed all the way to the Philippines, so that he could pay a Filipino like $5 an hour to monitor these security feeds, so that if somebody did something stupid, they could call the police. And what I had to explain to him is the cameras were fine and all of that, but again, you're looking at 2007, trying to stream 40 relatively high definition cameras halfway around the world. The Filipino might cost you $5 an hour, but the bandwidth is going to cost you about $10,000 a month. And so we quashed that particular project. Again, technically works, not a good idea. And so that's where it's like you've kind of got to delve into these things and really ask yourself, again, some of these projects, do they actually make sense? And with that kind of thing, probably not. I mean, if you're looking at AI solutions, I mean, were there any other things they were talking about with AI?
Basically, they want to be able to, because so basically they went to Microsoft, and Microsoft said, we can do all this stuff, but it's going to cost you, $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
And because they integrated systems. So they were looking for but they didn't need, they give you, it's like cable. Like Microsoft gave you cable, but you didn't need all those extra channels. We just need these specific things to help us. So that's what they are looking for now. It's kind of like how they're able to connect to their people in the streets, but also connect with these other organizations that they want to partner with to be able to give them the information they need. I mean, in kind of like in real time, but not exactly. And they felt like when the AI would be able to help with that, because if they need to change something, it can get changed right away, or help them come up with a different way to communicate to these individuals by, but yeah, it's through the cloud platform in a sense. I talk with them, and that's the take that I got from them. Yes, it may not be an AI solution, but still, that's a system kind of like problem. So, would you suggest maybe, I already have a platform that I'm redesigning now with some other help, trying to get them to integrate into my platform, and then that way I can kind of be able to kind of distribute the information if they bring it in? Is that a better approach or not really? On the business side or software side?
Technically design, that might not be a bad idea. That's where you're going to have your come to spaghetti monster moment, though. What the hell you're doing in life is, if you take ownership of that shit, you own that shit. I wouldn't want to own that shit. So if you're saying you're building your own platform, what's your 10-year plan on that thing? If they start relying on your platform, and for whatever reason it just doesn't work out the way most of the stuff doesn't, what kind of position does that put them in? Probably a pretty bad one. Yeah, I mean, I would argue with a lot of this stuff, especially with AI now, is kind of focus on anything that can interact with their system. So any systems that they own, or any systems that they can interact with. Again, through an API call, I don't care. But as long as it's already been designed for them to be able to interact with it, it's fine. And and then try to build things. I would argue, again, if you're here asking these questions, I would argue try to build stuff off the shelf or take stuff off the shelf as much as possible versus custom building it. Because again, the thing you have to think about is what happens the day after you. If you custom build this stuff, or if you take ownership of this and you fall over from a heart attack or whatever, right? What happens not just to that organization, but to all the people that rely on that organization? If you fall over dead tomorrow, like once they do the whole implementation, they write you the check, the whole 9 yards, you fall over dead. Can somebody within 2 weeks be able to take your documentation and all the resources and be able to maintain, manage, and improve the systems past your death? And so that's where I'd be very cautious, especially at this point, doing anything other than a temporary, like if you're going to use AI for a marketing campaign, if you're like Eli, this is a healthcare provider, they want to do a marketing campaign for the spring and they want to use AI to improve that marketing campaign, dude, take ownership of that. Take ownership of the entire damn thing, import the data, do whatever the hell you want with it. But because that project is going to die in the spring regardless, right? That's not right. Whereas, like I say, these long-term projects, again, they start relying on your systems. It's amazing how quickly shit becomes legacy. You thought it was a little test project, and then all of a sudden 500 people in the company are using the damn thing. So yeah, I would build stuff internal to their infrastructure. I would use as much off the shelf. So Azure, so if they're already using the Microsoft stack, using Azure, whatever Azure AI services that are out there, and kind of build something that way. Those are kind of some of the things to be thinking about. And that's where too is you can be thinking. So like with the stuff that they own, how could they create an API, or could they create a platform so that the external parties could go to that platform and be able to accomplish something? So something to think about, like imagine this using AI. So data is a pain in the ass, right? So how does this major health company get the healthcare data from the third party into a usable fashion? So what if you created a system where the third party people, they can pull up a record. So they can pull up a record of whoever the hell it is that they're worried about. Once they pull that up, could they take a screenshot of it? Could they turn that into a PDF? Send that to the platform you've created for this healthcare provider. And then that platform can then read that very specific information with whatever query is also presented by the user of the third party to then be able to answer questions that way. Again, that's one of the things to be thinking about. Like whenever we're dealing with data, where is the best connection for how that data is going to be pushed and pulled within your particular scenario? So that's something that you might think about. So you could use AI, and again, we've done classes on that. You could use AI to basically parse that screenshot or that PDF that gets sent. Use that, basically it's called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So use that information with the query to then come up with a custom answer based off of the healthcare providers, whatever, their stuff. Yeah.
That was kind of like what I was thinking, but you saying don't build a platform for that, use their system already, take off the shelf concept and do the same kind of like thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just have to kind of like figure out how to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is like Microsoft, if they're already in the Microsoft world, Azure has, it used to be cognitive services. I don't know if it is. It was AI-like services. Again, those were like 4 or 5 years ago when I was playing with it. And they had their vision services are great. So it's OCR, optical character recognition. So you can just send them literal documents, and you can ask it to pull out specific information from those documents, and then with that, figure out what you're doing.
I still have to see it. I gave Microsoft an example. I still don't know exactly what they are. Hopefully, I can get the second conversation going, and they can find out more information from there.
Yeah.
Thank you, though.
Yeah. The other thing too is when you're talking with this healthcare provider, figure out what the hell their budget is. Again, that's one of the issues is everybody wants gold-plated AI for McDonald's budget, and crap costs money. So that's one of the other things to be asking them too. Like, what are they? Is this a $50,000 and done project that they want to pay $10,000? Are they willing to pay $5,000 a year for maintenance cost on it? Do figure out what their budget is to also get an idea of what you're looking at.
Copy.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Cool. Yep. Okay, let's see here. We got questions. Hong, what's up? Hong. It says you're unmuted. Are you unmuted? Hong, can you hear me? No, I cannot hear you, Hong. That's why I'm making fun of you now. Yes, I make fun of people, but it's only because they deserve it. New mic. Yeah. Are you using Windows? Have I not taught you anything, people? This is why we use Macs. Hey, it may cost you $3,000 for a mic, but the mic works. Mic works. Dun 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 dun. Oh, poor Home. Okay, my question is, other than AI, what other trends in tech that went unnoticed? What other trends in tech went unnoticed? Yeah, I don't know. We have the same crappy tech we've had for like a decade now. We still aren't implementing 2005 technology. Again, that's one of the things that frustrates me. Like, there's this idea in the tech world, right? We're at the cutting edge. We're not. We just really aren't. We just so are not. And so there is so much technology out there that at this point in time is rock stable, dirt cheap, and nobody really cares about. Nobody really thinks about anymore. Again, like with the voice systems, it's very interesting. So like with Microsoft Azure. So the cognitive services. One of the parts of the cognitive services is voice interactivity. Well, one of the cool things with voice interactivity is it can actually identify the person that's speaking. What gets really curious with this, again, we start talking about that whole stack, the stack of technology, is Microsoft has something called Active Directory. So Active Directory services is basically security services, or it's not really security, is it access control? Got to be precise with words. Anyways, it's access control services. So who's allowed to print to the printer? Who's allowed to log into a particular computer? Who's allowed to get files and folders and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, the interesting thing in the IoT world, right, Internet of Things, is they've been able to bring Active Directory into things like door locks, right? So basically, your identifier, so in the Microsoft world, you can use different ways to log into systems, right? RFID, key card, fingerprints, all that kind of stuff. That came out, again, about 10 years ago. Anyways, so the really cool thing is, right, you can literally give access control to rooms and locks and all that kind of stuff based off of basically whatever that person's permissions are. And you can actually assign those permissions just like you assign permissions to a printer. What becomes even more interesting, though, is since you have voice identification, what can start to be curious is you can literally then start to have your employees be able to verbally communicate with systems and only be able to access the types of data that they're supposed to be able to access, right? So let's say a sales manager sits down at his desk and says, hey, Azure, whatever the hell you want to call it, what do our sales numbers look like today? And it could literally just verbally spit out, this is what the sales numbers look like today. You could say, hey, Azure, what, is Bob doing better this week than he did last week? and Azure could just spit all that out for you. So again, imagine you can just walk into your little office or whatever and say, crap, I've been really worried about Bob. Bob hasn't been up to speed in the last couple of weeks. I just want to see what his numbers are. Hey, Azure, is Bob doing better than he's been doing in the past 2 weeks? And then Azure can do its little thing and say, yes, Bob is up by 10%. Or no, Bob is down by 10%. Think about how much easier that kind of thing would be rather than sitting there and trying to go through, drill down through reports and all that kind of stuff. So like that's with Azure is really cool. It's really interesting. Again, like things with security. Again, it does. It can identify people. So when you walk up to a door, again, should a door be unlocked or should it be locked? Right? If it walks up to the door, it recognizes who you are. The door is simply unlocked. It's just seamless. Well, it's supposed to be seamless. It's Microsoft. So anyways, theoretically it's seamless. You sell it on its seamlessness, whether or not it actually is. Some random person walks up to the door and it's locked. And again, imagine from a security standpoint, because again, I got my degree in criminal justice way back when and dealt with security and all that. Imagine if every single door in a facility basically had facial recognition. Right, because that's the whole thing. Like with criminals, right? If they can get through the main door, the entire facility is up for grabs. Can you imagine? They get through the main door, and then they have to get through the lobby door, and then they have to get through this hallway door, and they have to get through this other door. Imagine if every door they come to is using facial recognition, and every time they try to get in the door, it's doing a little log, and once they try to get into 5 doors they're not allowed to get into, that automatically fires off to some security person to say, hey, probably somebody should look at what this person's doing in the building. So that's some of the interesting stuff that's out there. Yeah. Anyways.
Can you finally hear me?
Yeah, Hong, there you go. Yep.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So, cloud transformation and all that, are these trends continue or?
What's that?
About 2 years ago, my employer was big on cloud transformation, and right now, I'm not sure if I heard much of it. With all the users are about this AI.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the cloud transformation, generally it's moving from your old fixed service systems to cloud infrastructure. So, yeah, that's still a big thing. It's just not, it's not considered sexy anymore. AI is sexy. Cloud is 2 years ago type of deal. So again, it's going back to, it's selling to customers. Customers need solutions. So again, if you can walk in the door and you can offer them solutions, that's what they're going to be interested in actually writing the check for. They think AI is going to give them a solution, but for the most part, it's not. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, there's all kinds of cool technology. Just people don't care. Look at this. Look at this. This is a $12 computer. This is a full-fledged $12 computer. Can run Ubuntu or Raspberry Pi OS, Debian distro. Has a gigahertz processor, has 512 megs of RAM, has full Wi-Fi stack. Can do all kinds of cool things. But, yeah, people don't really care. People don't care. Don't know why. Okay, questions. Here for the questions, not for the hanging out. Vlad, did you have a question? There you go. Vlad, okay, oops. No, you unmuted yourself. Yep, okay, yep.
Yeah, I did, thanks. So, I just wanted to say that I also had a question about frameworks because I was actually using Replit to make a simple design of like a website.
Yep.
And in the particular case that I was using, the Replit was using Django, and there was no problem with the code or anything else.
Yep.
It was actually really, really nice, even though it was a Django framework, and I didn't know that much about the code. But when I tried to deploy the website, it ended up having some sort of issues. So I was wondering if you could tell me more about, tell the class more about the frameworks, if they actually affect, if they affect the outcome of the project. And in general, if you could comment on what frameworks are the best.
So like Django or Bottle or Flat, like that's what you're talking about with frameworks?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, frameworks, you need them. I mean, like, if you're going to be using Python, frameworks are going to be what allows you to do anything of real complication. Again, if you're going to be building web applications, you need a framework. So, technically, straight from Python code, you can sort of run a web server. So Python has a web server that's part of its libraries when you install it into your system. And so theoretically, you can just use that web server and create a web app. Theoretically, you can create a complicated web app. It's just going to suck. And so basically what the frameworks do is, again, in the technology world, it's all about copy and paste. Again, this whole idea of reinventing the wheel, that's for noobs. Noobs say they're going to, they would never use anybody else's code. They're going to write their own. And that's how you know they've been doing this shit for about 1 month, right? Because that's not how it works. And so the idea is, right, if somebody creates, a lot of code in order to solve a particular set of problems, then basically make that open source or put that into a package that maybe people can buy. And that's the idea with the framework, right? So when we talk about frameworks, so Django is a web app framework. So if you want to create a web application, Bottle, again, I have that Bottle class as a web app framework. OpenCV is a computer vision framework. Tkinter is a framework that allows you to create desktop applications. So desktop applications where you right-click, left-click, you can actually do that with Python. And so that's basically what the frameworks do. Is they are they're libraries of code or modules or packages or whatever that extend the capabilities of Python. And thankfully, somebody else is willing to build this stuff. So again, if you look at Django was created 2004, as I believe, as I recall. And basically the idea, I think it was with the New York Times, something like the New York Times or somebody else, they were basically trying to create a content management solution that they could custom control or whatever. And so that's why they built Django. And so that's the thing is like with Django, and that's why we haven't done a class on Django yet. So anybody that's new to this session, right, we have our self-study program, and you'll notice we have Bottle. And one of the reasons I teach Bottle, and I get crap from people for teaching you all Bottle. Why would you teach them Bottle? Because it's dirt damn simple, right? I can literally write a Bottle web app with 10 lines of code, right? I could just sit here and type out a Bottle web app if I really wanted to, just off of my own memory, right? And that's the thing; it's really, really, really simple. But it only does simple things, right? It doesn't have a user management system built in. It doesn't have something called an ORM, an object relationship management system built in. There's all this kind of stuff. And so that's the thing is like you go with Django. And Django is really impressive, right? So Instagram was originally built off of Django. Pinterest was originally built off of Django. Like you can build a highly scalable enterprise class, system using Django. But lots of moving parts. Lots and lots and lots and lots of moving parts. And so that's the issue that you run into is like when you use some of these frameworks, and that's where I tell you is learning the framework many times will be more complicated than Python. It took me about a month to fully be able to understand Django. Like I sat down and I was going to start doing classes on Django when we were doing the in-person classes. And literally I gave myself a week. I was like, look, I already know Python. I know some of these frameworks. I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to knock out Django. And we're going to start teaching Django. And yeah, about a month later, I finally fully got my head around it. And so that's gonna be the issue. Again, like if you're using AI, if you're using any services to create code, the thing is, these services, it's called a force multiplier. These services allow people who know what they're doing to move at a much faster rate. But again, just think about if you're tippy-tappy typing code. Imagine if you just have custom copy-paste. And that's what you do. You literally ask AI or whatever for the code, you copy, you paste, but then you audit. And you verify exactly what the hell's going on. And so, like with you, if you had this code and you took it and then you try to deploy it. Like it might work fine in your system, but if you don't fully understand, again, so the final class that I did for the Bottle Web App Framework was deploying the damn thing. And when you go to deploy it, like you have to understand Linux. So you have to understand the permissions and security. You have to understand how to set up a service and how services work. You have to understand all of that kind of stuff on top of even just understanding the Django stuff before you even get to the Python code and everything else that's happening. And so what the problem that you may have is that simply, you may just have one stupid ass set. Again, that's the whole thing with coding, right? You forget that one comma somewhere in that mess, and none of it works. And so that's the thing. Like you might want to go to there's a settings file. So what I would say, maybe look at the settings file and see if there's some weird thing in the settings file. Again, permissions, if it's communicating to a database, like did you copy and paste the database and now for some reason the user account that the service runs under doesn't actually have permission to even view the database? That might be a problem. Did you set up as a VENV, so virtual environment? So most of the time with documentation, so we don't do a lot of virtual environments in these classes just because it's an extra level of complication. But when you go to deploy a framework, most of the time the documentation will be based off of using a virtual environment. So did you do the virtual environment? Did you do the pip? Did you do the pip freeze and the pip installing the requirements or the requirements.txt file? Did you do the import and export on that properly? I say I don't know. There's a lot of stuff.
I'm pretty sure it was the virtual environment or something like that.
Yeah.
Computer vision or something. But at the end of the day, it's that service. I wasn't really happy with that service. But yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for that's related to Replit, right? But yeah, the frameworks are really useful. Thanks so much for your comment.
Yep, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see here. Okay, Jock is again. Jock will keep us going for the next 2 hours. It's like, yay, Jock came. I have a show today. Jock, what's up?
Actually, I have to jump on a call. I'm going to ask this question really quick. So I attended another class. One was about RAG, and she was building a website and utilizing RAG.
Yep.
The framework she used was Quark, and she suggested that you do not use Flask because it was a sequentious framework. We use Bottle all the time because that's what you use. Do you know if Bottle is sequential or asequential framework? I guess is the question I asked. Because she was saying that when you use a certain framework and you get a request in and you add other things on top of it, it would work. The other requests won't be able to come in because it's going through the motions of that first request using another system. And that's when you use, I guess the term is sequential, in a sense. Like she was using like LLMs and things like that. But she was using it as an example of any type of system you put into a framework. And that's why she resisted to use Flask. So my question was, do you know if Bottle is sequential or asequential, or does that even matter because of some things that you're doing that's non-AI related? If you can understand my question.
Yeah, I understand the question, sort of. Don't understand the circumstance. So sequential, asequential. So generally when you're dealing with asequential, that's one of the reasons people like JavaScript, actually. So the first thing to be thinking about with multiple users going to your site, there's something called single-threaded or multi-threaded. So one of the reasons why you use Gunicorn, so when you actually go to deploy a Bottle web app, you don't just use the built-in Python web server because it's single-threaded. Basically, it can only deal with one request at a time, and if that one request freezes up, everybody else freezes up behind it. So that's why we use Gunicorn. Gunicorn is what's called multi-threaded. It uses something called workers. It's able to deal with multiple threads at one time. So even if one request gets locked up for some reason, it's still able to deal with the other request. So that's with Python. That's with Bottle, and I basically think the Python world is the whole threaded versus multi-threaded. We talk about synchronous versus asynchronous. As far as I know, I mean, maybe I guess you can do it. Python is basically synchronous. It starts at the top of the code and just runs down the list, right? It does the REST API call. You know, you have a try except statement for the REST API call. It does all that kind of stuff, and then you get the response at the bottom, however long that takes. With JavaScript, how the programming language is designed, you can give it a whole bunch of tasks, and then literally it essentially fires off all the tasks, kind of like as it wants to, and then as tasks complete, then things get finished. So that's one of the things that's a pain in the ass with it, is there's something called promises. So basically, when JavaScript makes a request, there's like a promise, and basically it's waiting for that. But it's like you can fire off 10 things, all of those are working. So your last one may finish first, your third one may finish second, your fifth one may finish whatever. And then basically once all of them are completed, then it finishes. And so that's where you get the asynchronous from. So basically the idea is that these different tasks can fire off basically at the same time, and then as they finish, they finish. So I don't know about Python. I thought Python was just synchronous. Could be wrong. So that's why I say, like, I understand what she's saying. So again, that's one of the reasons why people like Node. So Node.js is the framework to turn JavaScript to be able to do stuff like Python. So it's able to work on a server the way Python runs on a server, and that's one of the reasons people like Node.js. So yeah.
Okay. I got another question, but I gotta go.
Yep.
Thanks so much. I look forward if we do this again. I have more questions for you.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Okay, last one. Questions. Oh wow, look at you, you're putting up thumbs. Questions. We're here for questions. I've done my hour. I can go take a nap. You're like, we're just hanging out. Okay, do we have questions? We don't got questions. I'm gonna go. Dun dun dun. Hong, yep. Unmute you. Oops. There we go. What's up, Hong?
Probably. How about the saturation of text? Do you think there's kind of more saturation, or it's just continue? Because a lot of product, I think, seem to be doing the same thing as the other product. I mean, Azure and it's kind of AWS, and they kind of having the same, and we have DeepSeek that come in with ChatGPT, which I don't really follow, but it's kind of, we got Gemini from Google, we have Olama from Facebook, I think. I mean, that's AI, and it kind of, they do the same work as each other. So is it, I'll not continue to grow, so.
Yeah.
Just,
yeah, I mean, the tech market is basically saturated. Again, we have, and that's again where you go back. If you look 10 years ago, you had a lot of different companies doing a lot of interesting things, and now you notice all the companies are doing the exact same crap. And so yeah, we are in a saturated market. So you have these massive companies that still make a massive amount of money. They're still incredibly profitable, and so they're all running after the next thing. And none of them know what it's gonna be. So again, you have Meta, right? Meta dumped, I don't know, what was it, like $40 billion into the metaverse, and that was a failure. So now they're going hardcore into AI for some reason. And so yeah, you see and that's the thing, is like when IoT was supposed to be the big thing. Again, you had Google Home devices, and you had Ring, and you had Nest, and you had Amazon. Again, Amazon, AWS put a tremendous amount of money into. Oh, Alexa! The whole Alexa thing was supposed to be massive, and then they just basically killed it. They just chopped the head off of that damn thing. So yeah, I think that one of the big problems we're running into right now is tech needs customers more than customers need tech products. And so again, that's where I would argue for a lot of folks is instead of focusing on the buzzwords, is again finding companies, finding problems, and actually trying to find solutions that people will pay for. I have a buddy of mine, I just talked about this the other day on the Daily Blob, who just exited an AI company. So he was doing AI before AI was cool. So before I left Baltimore, he had been doing this AI company for a couple of years, a few years at least, and he just exited. He did really well. He got a good exit there. Anyways, one of the interesting things is he was talking about it, and even though he literally just did a very good exit on an AI company, he was saying he doesn't want to go into the AI space right now because there's so much noise in the AI space. So he said, if you go back 8-9 years ago, if he put out something on LinkedIn or if he put something on a social media post, the people that were in AI, the people that were valuable, would find his content, right? Because right, and then that was a way to get signal boost and the rest of it. The issue is he talked about that with DeepSeek, right? DeepSeek comes out, and in the first day there's like 10,000 LinkedIn posts about DeepSeek, and he was like, how do you even get above that much noise just to get in front of somebody's eyeballs that actually matter? He doesn't really think it's that possible anymore. And so yeah, that's the kind of thing to be thinking about right now. Is again with your careers how do you get past the noise? Yeah.
And another question is,
Yep.
so the big company are all doing the AI stuff, and what about the mid-range to the smaller ones? Are they trending toward managed solution or MSP or any other stuff? Do you know?
What with AI or MSPs using AI and that type of thing, or?
I'm not sure if they using AI or not, but we know the news are all about the big tech like Google, like Facebook and so forth, but we're probably not going to work for them. But what about the big range company who kind of looking for just low-cost solution or something like that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean that's where more AI is being built into products. Whether it's not a good whether it's a good solution, who knows? But like Salesforce is building AI into their products, so that's where like the middle companies, they're going to be getting their AI from platforms that they already buy. So if you already buy Salesforce, you're gonna get AI in there shoved down your throat somehow. Again, even with VS Code. I just noticed this today. I hadn't noticed this before. I apparently now have Copilot. I didn't pay for Copilot. I didn't ask for Copilot. I got Copilot now for some reason. Right? Anyways, I have to figure that out. I literally didn't know that was there, so I have to figure what's going on with that. And so yeah, so I think a lot of these like the mid. Again, if you're not the huge companies, they're just going to be using products that kind of have AI embedded into it. And again, that goes back to understanding the vertical that you want to work in. So when we talk about verticals, we're basically talking about industries. So the healthcare industry, the construction industry, the real estate industry. And so again, if you're interested in AI, one of the things to be thinking about is understanding a vertical, how business functions in one particular vertical, and then understanding how these products can basically, increase the performance of the companies that are there. So you're not selling LLMs. Nobody wants to buy an LLM. Nobody gives two shits about an LLM. What they want to buy is how can I verify, I don't know how the performance of my individual technicians. If I've got 50 technicians, so if I'm an employer and I have 50 technicians, it sucks to manage that. Again, nobody wants to hear that. Nobody here wants to hear the boss's side of the story. They always want to complain from the employees. As a boss, it sucks, right? So you have 50 technicians. How do you figure out which technicians are actually doing their jobs properly and which of them are wasting time? Right, and so if there's components built into, let's say their work order system, that might be a way to try to suss out the performance of people. And so that's the kind of stuff that I'd be thinking about. Again, if you're thinking about those mid-level companies, is thinking about those kind of products that are out there that can solve problems. And again, it's just going out there and doing the research and that type of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go. Anyway, let's see here. 316. Questions. Any more questions? Dun dun dun. Oh, there we go. Got a hand up. Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
I want to ask you, is it Laravel like Django in the functionalities?
I'm sorry, what?
And Laravel,
Oh,
is it
Laravel.
is it like Django in the functionality?
So Laravel is for PHP?
Yes.
I don't know a lot about Laravel. I don't know a lot about Laravel. So I can't tell you on that one. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
Yep.
I want to ask you another question about the cloud services. What is the difference between those cloud like AWS or Azure and VPS and the virtual hosts, just five?
Yeah, so it's basically it's called infrastructure as a service. So if you're looking at AWS, Azure, or Google's cloud services, or you're looking at like Linode, DigitalOcean, Vercel, those types of things, it's called infrastructure as a service. So again, when I start drawing out these very complicated diagrams, that's going to be infrastructure. So here's the deal, like it's very simple. All right, so if your infrastructure is cloud, VPS, users, then you go with one of these smaller companies, Vercel, DigitalOcean, Linode, whatever else, because basically you have one virtual server, maybe two, depending on what's going on. Maybe you have some storage blocks, something called storage blocks. Anyways, it's very simple, right? Maybe you have a database service you buy from them for $30 a month. You have your virtual server, no big deal, right? That's why you use the small players. And again, that's why for DigitalOcean, or that for Silicon Dojo, that's why we use DigitalOcean, and I'll use it as an example, is just because it's relatively simple, relatively inexpensive, and actually gives you good performance. Here's the thing, why you use Azure or AWS or whatever else is, on the other hand, if you got the cloud and you got the user here, and this comes in to basically your infrastructure, and then in your virtual infrastructure, you have, let's say you have, it's called a reverse proxy server. So you have a reverse proxy server here, and the reverse proxy server determines what location in the world this particular person is, and then based off of where this person is in the world, it then literally routes the person to a specific server. That specific server then has a database. So again, if we're talking about the world, right? The world, one of the issues we have nowadays is data geolocation. So a lot of countries out there are saying that if you have user information, the data for that user information has to physically reside within their national borders. Right, so you have this whole thing going on, and then you have all over the world, then you have data centers like all over the world, and so then their data goes to this particular data center, whereas somebody else's data goes to somebody else's data center. These then, again, you have to have like backup solutions. What happens if this data center goes down? You have a replication strategy over to a different data center. You got all kinds of stuff going on. So this is why you use AWS or Azure, or some people use Google. 5 people use Google, because you're able, again, when we talk about this thing called IaaS, it's called infrastructure as a service. And literally, it's not just servers. So you can have servers here. You can have software, called cloud, like software networking equipment, theoretically like switches and that type of thing. You can have firewalls, so if somebody's coming from a certain location, they can't get into certain systems. Again, you can create replication strategies amongst these different data centers. And that's where you get to with IaaS. So yeah, that's why you use like Azure or AWS. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Another question.
Yep.
Possible. And when we're hosting our database,
Yep.
I don't understand what is the difference between the. I asked that question in a lesson. I don't understand what's the difference between the hosting of the database and the storage.
Oh, the database and the storage. So, okay, so storage is for files, database is for records. So just to give you an example of what's called a relational database, so SQLite, MySQL, these are all relational databases, right? So, okay, so you have your server, user comes in, and basically you have a script here that needs to push and pull files. So you have records. So the record may be a user account, right? The user ID, the username, the password, profile path, that type of thing. Or if you have like a blog. If you have a blog, it would be like the blog name, the blog content, the featured image, that type of thing. So that's a good example, right? So when somebody comes in and your script, your Python script, is dynamically building the web page that they're going to see, what it's going to do is it's going to go to your SQL, your database server. And your database server has what are called tables in it, right? And you have columns in the table, and you have records in the table. So columns, rows are records. And so for the column, right, there's going to be an ID, so everything needs a unique ID. Then you might have a title, and then you might have the post, and then you might have then a link to the featured image. So the featured image, right? So ID is 1, title is title, post is a whole bunch of stuff, and then the featured image is literally going to say like /static /image.png. So when your script is then creating this blog post for somebody to take a look at, what's going to happen is it's dynamically going to write, and it's going to put the title there, and it's going to put the content here, and then up at top, right, basically it's going to use this link. It's going to go to what's called the data store, the storage. In there is going to be this little image file, and that is basically, so in the database, it's called a pointer. It points to the image file so that the image file can be served up to the user. So storage is going to be files. It's going to be pictures, it's going to be movies, it's going to be whatever, PDFs, files. Whereas the database is going to be records. Now theoretically, again, since you guys are new, you might be searching and you're going to find about the blob data type. So again, I do a show some days, many days, it's called the Daily Blob. I've done it off and on since 2012. Literally, the reason I call it blob is a specific data type within SQL databases. And that data type allows you to put anything into it. Again, ergo, daily blob. And so you can, don't do it, you can literally put a picture. You can put files, theoretically, directly into your database. The issue is it makes your database insanely big and is just a complete and utter disaster. So do not do this. Do not do this. What you do is you save the file into the storage, into the data store, and then you have a pointer to the file so that whenever your script needs to access that file, it knows where to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. There you go. Yeah, databases and storage. And don't use blobs. Don't use blobs. I will be the person to tell you blobs are a bad idea. Blobs are a bad idea all the way around. Just say no to blobs. Anyways. Questions. 3:30 on a Friday. Any more questions or I'm going home? Going home. I'm already home. Any more questions? I'm going to go drink a cup of coffee. Dun-dun-dun. Though it is less interesting now. I drink decaf coffee. That's what happens when you get close to 50. You get close to 50, all kinds of evil shit happens in your body. And then you start drinking decaf coffee. I never thought that crap would pass my lips, but it's true. Okay. Any questions? Anybody even there? I have no idea. Everybody had... In YouTube, you have to understand, I'm just looking at like this blank screen. Everybody literally has their cameras off. I don't even know if they're there right now. Vlad has roadkill. Is that roadkill? I guess that's appropriate. I don't know. Okay. Questions? Vlad, what's up?
Oh no, it's not a road. It's like a salamander from like Chile or something.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Or whatever the country. Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka, there you go. Cool. Okay, is everybody done then? Everybody good? Alright, seems like everybody's good then. So yeah, I think we're going to be doing these for the next couple of weeks. Again, I'm trying to get these self-study courses done, and they take a lot of work to complete, more work than I thought. So we'll probably be doing these. So every Friday, 2 to 4, we'll do these again for the foreseeable future. Again, Mondays, if you do want one-on-ones, I do the one-on-ones office hours. If you go to Silicon Dojo, you can sign up for those. But again, those are actually booked out for like a month, so it is as it is. Again, we have the self-study programs, Python Introduction, 48 courses there, I think. Model, something like 21 classes there, so we have those. Again, I am working on the... no, what am I working on? I am working on the SQLite one right now, so hopefully that will be out next week. Hopefully. Classes, older classes are here. These live classes, you can watch them here. Again, How to Found a Tech Business, that was up last week. I'll actually also post these particular videos up, just so they might be useful for you. Again, we're actually recording these in 4K, so if you watch them later, they're going to be a hell of a lot easier to see. And I will just point out, Donor Box exists. If you find these valuable, if anybody finds these valuable, throwing a couple bucks a month in would be ever so lovely. So yeah, that's it. Any questions? No questions. Cool. I'm going to go have a cup of coffee. See y'all later.